Welcome everyone to SQL Hangout number 38. Today we're going to talk about career transitioning with Alexander. So I'm going to let him introduce himself. It's going to be a very interesting episode, and if you do have any questions, you can tweet us or you can use the chat here on YouTube. But I'll just let Alex introduce himself first. So, Alex?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. This is going to be interesting. It's my first and hopefully not my last something on the internet, as you usually say, but it stays, anything that happens going to stay on YouTube. So, well, here I am. I'm Alex. I've been doing this database stuff for close to 20 years. Most of the time deep down inside SQL Server and Oracle. And a couple of years back, I decided it was time to do something slightly different. And I started to transition my career towards Power BI, visualization, BI stuff, and yeah, generally that. So that's what I do. I work as a senior consultant at Atea in Sweden. Senior consultant is a good title since nobody have a clue what I'm doing, pretty much, which means I can do anything that I want. But yeah, basically working with data, not necessarily databases, but data. I think I came a bit late to the party with regards to the voluntary stuff. I just found PASS and that whole thing a couple of years back. And this year I spoke at my first SQL Saturday, and I will be speaking at Tech Days in a couple of weeks here in Sweden. I will be going to PASS. And yeah, anyone want to meet me there, I'll be there.
Great. So a couple of opportunities for people to meet you and actually talk to you more about this. So you mentioned that you come from the world of like SQL Server and Oracle. So basically, did you transition between those two as well, or did you start out with both of them at the same time?
It's a good question. I started out back in 1997 with Oracle, since the company I worked with at the time they were an Oracle-only shop back in Oracle 7. But just a year after I came in, they started to work with SQL Server as well, SQL Server 6.5. So I decided, what the heck, it's a database. How hard can it be? And top tip, it's quite hard to keep track of both of them, but I did. I've been deep down in both of them since 1998, 1999. So no transition between them. But the funny thing is, the more you know about one, the more you actually know about the other. Sure, there are different syntax and stuff like that, but all in all, it's the same thing.
Same thing. So all of that was mainly DBA stuff, performance tuning, like hardcore internals?
Yeah, definitely. Everything from design to implementation to high availability, performance tuning, as you said, and quite a lot teaching, actually. Back then, I had my own company at the side, and I was working for a company called Learning Tree. These days, I'm a certified Microsoft certified trainer, so I train people on Microsoft stuff.
And then when did you actually start transitioning into more of the Azure Power BI world?
That's a funny thing, since I was probably the first guy who said, nah, this cloud stuff not going to stick. And boy, was I wrong. I'd say the transition started in earnest 2 years ago, when I kind of got the whiff of, okay, I might be wrong about this whole Azure thing. So I started toying with Azure, and everyone who's spent more than 2 minutes with Azure knows that 2 years ago, a long time ago, and Power BI wasn't even there 2 years ago. And Power BI I came up on just a year ago. And then again, I didn't know what it was. It smelled of Excel, which I try to avoid. But it turns out that it was way more than Excel. So yeah, 2 years ago, I started with Azure. 1 year ago, I started with Power BI. And I can't say I stopped, and I can't say I've looked back since.
So you only work with Azure Power BI now, or do you still do some of the DBA stuff?
I wish. Trouble with being me, I was about to say, is that I do a lot of stuff that is not just DBA related. I've written 33 certification tests, and I hold certification from 6 or 7 different companies: HP, Cisco, Oracle, Microsoft, you name it. I do Sun, I do networking design, I do basically anything under the sun when it comes to IT infrastructure. And that makes you quite a popular guy with stuff that you might not want to work with. The whole point of me learning all that stuff was to be a better DBA. But yeah, it also means that I have to jump in and do stuff that I might not want to do. So to answer your question, no, I don't just work with Azure and Power BI these days. I want to, but I'm moving towards that, trying to avoid the other icky stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you say that, because a lot of people kind of fall into the accidental DBA role, and it sounds like because you're a smart guy and you want to learn a lot of stuff about, things that will make you better at your job, that you kind of end up all over the place.
Yeah.
But for, going from the DBA side of things and moving into, let's talk about Azure first, and we can take the Power BI stuff later. But moving into Azure, what was the most difficult thing for you in that transition?
The most difficult thing for me was that since I have almost 20 years of experience, I felt that I was leaving all that behind and starting from scratch. And my ego is not that easily bruised. I love being wrong. That means that I can learn something new. But in this case, I was terrified. And I don't use that word lightly. I mean, going from something I know everything about, sort of, to something I know nothing about was the hardest part for me. But as I started to actually delve into it, I realized that, hey, I know this crap. It's basically the same thing with a new shiny label and a web interface. And then just add some REST API and you're done.
I'm guessing, people watching this who are, I know I've kind of felt the same way, trying to learn all of this new cloud stuff, and especially how fast it's changing, that you're, like you said, it can be really terrifying diving into something that is completely unknown. I'm guessing the good part is it's new to everyone. I don't think anyone's a real expert in all the stuff yet.
No, I agree. But on the other hand, this is where it is a bit tricky to be a Scandinavian, and I think you know what I'm about to say here. We don't generally try to speak so much and say, we know this stuff, we are the best there is. Generally, Americans are way better than we are to put it out there. They know this stuff. So it's easy to be fooled, so to speak. They're way better than people than I out there, and way more blogs than what I write. But sure, everybody's learning, and as you say, it changes frequently. I wrote a Azure certification a couple of months back that was 4 months out of date. That was weird.
I bet.
Trust me. A few things on the certification tests don't even exist yet anymore. But they're changing the whole certification thing. They're going to a monthly cadence, which means that the certification tests for Azure, that would be 532, 33, and 34 at the moment, they will be updated monthly.
Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't know that. So, when Azure moving so quickly, they're actually updating the certifications as well?
Yeah.
Very interesting. So, do you have any major aha moments when you started working with Azure on something? Because you mentioned that you realized that, hey, I actually know this kind of stuff. Anything that you can remember that was, well, this is basically just the same thing as what I've known for 20 years?
Sure. To begin with, the classic value proposition for the cloud was to run a virtual machine in the cloud. As one of my colleagues put it, this is just someone else's data center, which it is. It's not my data center, it's someone else's. So yeah, if you're used to Hyper-V and virtualization, then it's the same thing. Going from the infrastructure as a service to the software as a service is another question, though. And it comes back to, how do you view the business? And there, my work as a consultant has helped me very much, going from just hardcore tech stuff, I mean, tech people that smell bad and can't be kept in normal company, to normal people, CIOs and the like. When you start to talk to them and you realize, how do you use this technology, that's where the SaaS proposition kind of slots into place.
And how's it, just moving on to the Power BI side of things, because that's very different from working with the internals of SQL Server. So how is that? Did you just install it and then started playing with it, or did you have a client where you worked with someone?
I work as a TSP for Microsoft, which is a partner technical sales, pre-sales something. It changes daily, so I don't know what the title is. And one of my colleagues in Microsoft just showed me, take a look at this. My first thought was, yeah, sure, Excel on steroids. But then he used to be a database guy, and he thought that I should look at it. And so I decided, sure, I can see what it is. And my first idea was that, okay, this is a nice way of visualizing data, but it's not very useful. And I was wrong again. I'd say it's the sexiest thing since sliced bread. The whole notion of being able to visualize data and create a narrative around the data. And for me, this was great. I mean, I've spent 20 years toying with databases and data. I completely missed the whole business intelligence train. I can't write NDX queries if my life was dependent on it. I don't do that stuff. But suddenly, I can do something with all that data that my customers have been collecting for the last 15 years. Finally, I can do something more interesting than just build a cube, which I can't do. So yeah, that's how I kind of went into that one. And it's the same. I mean, it's data.
And do you think, like, for other DBAs as well, even if they're not moving into the BI space, that would you recommend that they start looking at Power BI, just experimenting with it and see if that can help them become better DBAs?
Absolutely. I would say everyone can benefit from learning a bit of Power BI. We've used it to access clients that we hadn't had any chance with earlier. And if they don't respond to the technical side, you can always turn the coin around and go, okay, so what kind of data do you have? Do you have any idea what data do you have? And how do you visualize your data? What do you want to use it for? And especially if you create the narrative and you talk the customer through the data, and yeah, it basically sells itself. And when you've shown that you can do this to their data, and they realize, we're going to need to see this and this, but we don't have that kind of data. That's when you slide in and say, well, I know someone who just might be able to help you with that. So there you go. It's another way of into the customer.
And a great tips for consultants there on getting, more work and getting paid more, and yeah, great tip there.
Oh yeah.
So, there's things are changing all the time, and you have to learn this stuff. And for people who, they might not want to dive straight into it, do you have any resources online or books or something that has helped you learn this?
I'd love to say books, but since the development speed is too high for books. I mean, we all remember the background of Tobias Koporovsky's SQL Hangout. He's got this huge bookcase of just SQL books. I don't. I'd say any and everything by Adam Saxton, Guy in a Cube. That short, his series is just superb. There's a lot at EDX. The Power BI team has a lot of videos on YouTube. The Power BI team's blog is great. And of course, my personal favorite, just dig into it. Try to tear it apart and put it back together and see what happens.
Yeah. And what about SQL Saturdays?
Subtle, very subtle. Yes. I mean, everything that PASS offers, SQL Saturday, SQL Relay, SQL anything, is great. And it's most often free.
It is. And that, very subtly moves on to my next question here. So we first met at SQL Saturday in Gothenburg, and that was your first time speaking. How did you actually start speaking? Because you've been doing training for many years and you've been writing certifications, but, moving into the speaking area.
For some reason, I didn't think that what I had to say was very interesting. And to be honest, I still struggle with this every day. Why would anyone listen to me as opposed to, say, for instance, you or anyone, Brent Ozar, Tobias Kuprowski, anyone, but why me? And I think someone got tired of hearing me whine about this and just kicked me in the head and said, just do it already. So I sent in a couple of abstracts to Gothenburg, and lo and behold, when he called me and said, hey man, I have a proposition for you. So yeah, there we go. And when it comes to the tech days, which I never expected to get a speaking slot to, I sent in the same abstracts as I did for SQL Saturday, and they didn't want any of them. But then they needed to find someone to talk about SQL, Azure SQL database, and asked me if I could do it, and sure I can. So I'm going to talk about, it's called Azure SQL Database, The Cloud Awakens. There might be a slight Star Wars-y twist on it. And let's put it this way. If you come to my session, you're going to hear all about why the Death Star actually was destroyed. And it's not the reason that people think. It was IT related.
Sounds very interesting. People should absolutely go. What date is that?
It is in November. Since I don't ever walk anywhere without my calendar, it says 16th to 17th of November 2016 in Stockholm. Kista.
Very soon then.
Yep.
That's fun. And speaking of, there's some stuff behind you there that may have given away the Star Wars theme already. Do you want to explain what you have behind you there?
Behind me is my 45 kilos of bad conscience. It is, I'm working on a full-size R2-D2 droid from Star Wars. It is scratch built. Few parts are, of course, bought, especially the dome shape is very difficult to make. But apart from that, everything is done more or less by hand by me. The funny thing is that there's 6 or 7, maybe more, complete droids in Sweden at the moment. We have 1 in Norway, 1 or 2 in Norway, no in Denmark, and no in Finland. But yeah, there's a few weird people that do this.
It sounds fun.
It is. I mean, it's the best way that I know of to just get rid of all your time and all your money, and you don't need any friends either because you don't have the time.
Well, if you start speaking at SQL Saturdays, I know that can be both a time sink and, you can spend quite a lot of money traveling if you want to do that as well.
Yeah.
So your session in Gothenburg was called Unicorn Safari.
Yep.
So you kind of have this thing for themes in your session.
I do. I do. I've never taken myself very seriously. I love just doing something unexpected. So in Gothenburg, I suited up in a white linen suit and donned a British desert hat. Unicorns, safari, the whole 9 yards. And while I won't be wearing a Star Wars uniform in Stockholm, there will be a very serious Star Warsy theme on things. So yeah, I try to create the narrative around the the presentation, which made me very happy when I stumbled on Boris's work, Boris Christoph. He and I think exactly the same way. Then it turns out that you're one of his people too. So
Yep.
yeah, simplifying things, creating a simple, fun, and interesting way to talk, basically.
Yeah.
And not just go boring PowerPoint slides after boring PowerPoint slides. So yeah, themes are a good way to do that.
It's all about the learning and making people remember your key points, right, when you're talking?
Yeah, always. And don't try to force 43 different things down their throat. Just keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Very good advice there. I'm sure Boris will be happy as well.
Yeah.
Hangout guy. What else with like Power BI coming from the DBA world and transitioning over to Power BI?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is like the next step? Do you think cloud is going to take over that space? Are we going to move away from on-premises, or do you think it's going to be hybrid all the way? What are your thoughts on that?
That's probably the most common question I get asked from a professional standpoint. And my answer today is that no, on-premise won't go away. It will be like the cloud. It's going to be a tool, not necessarily the tool, but a tool. And as the cloud and on-prem comes closer together, for instance, Azure Stack, when that's going to be finished in 2017 or 2018, then the only difference between the on-prem and the cloud is where is your data, pretty much. So I'm thinking hybrid, but more homogeneous than it is today. Maybe. I might be wrong. That would be interesting, but that's my take on it at the moment.
Yeah, it's hard to predict, and like you said, cloud is gonna, fade away, and I was wrong about that, and I'm sure others were as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I lost my question there. Never mind. Anything else you wanna add about how your experiences in this career transition has been?
Sure. First of all, don't be afraid to jump. This classic and very well used way to put it is move outside of your comfort zone. I mean, everything interesting happens outside of your comfort zone. And while something might not feel related to what you do at the moment, when you learn something new, it's fairly easy to connect the dots. And there's no such thing as too much knowledge or useless knowledge. I still have stuff rattling around in my head from Orcus 7. That's 1990s. I don't use it every day, but trust me, I love it when I need it. It's there. And whenever I learn something new, be it Power BI, Azure, Windows Server, Unix, Linux, doesn't matter. It's a piece of the puzzle. And the puzzle is always evolving, the puzzle is always changing, so you never know what you might need. So from just a career transitioning standpoint, don't be afraid to jump. Don't be afraid to jump to something that you never toyed with before. As you said, we're all learning, which is a good thing. I mean, we can learn together.
Absolutely. And you also have a blog, right?
What was that?
You also have a blog.
I do. I have the Arctic DBA blog, so www.arcticdba.se, and I'm also tweet at Arctic DBA, which is a fun thing since I hate cold. I don't know what I'm still doing in this country, but yeah.
Yeah. And how's that been? Has your blogging helped you learn something, or is it more like a diary for you when you go do something?
It has. It's taught me that I suck at writing.
I don't think so. I've read your blog and I disagree respectfully.
Right. The good thing is that I have a very dear friend who's a writer, And when she stopped laughing at me when I explained my problems, she said, sure, you have the same kind of problems that a writer does. And since I'm a qualified writing teacher, we're going to take care of that. So I'm hoping she can take my blog to the next level. But to answer your question, both. I try to write something that I want to read, which apparently is the wrong way to do it, since I'm very picky with what I want to read. I probably should write way more than I do. On the other hand, I just last week got something into my head that it just clicked home and said, okay, I do a lot of things. I'm multidisciplinary. So what I write about. But it's the same thing. It's all about data. Everything, it doesn't matter if it's the SAN, networking, servers, zip it. It's data. So if I just keep writing about data, I'm home free. So hopefully, and I'm going to be eating this, I know, hopefully my blog will be more active in the future.
Hopefully. Well, at least I hope so. I've enjoyed reading your blog. I hope to see you present at other events soon. I unfortunately won't be at Tech Days, but for those of you in Sweden, go and listen to Alex there. And you mentioned this at the start as well. You're going to Pass Summit this year, right?
Yep, third time.
Third time. Any sessions you're really looking forward to there?
Yes, one specific session, and I think it's going to be difficult to get in if you're not already on it. It's Brent Ozar's level 500 session about career, taking your career to the next step. That's going to be interesting. Brent Ozar is quite an amazing person, and I owe quite a lot of my knowledge and my stuff to him. So it's going to be very interesting to see him talk about what he's going to talk about. And of course, anything by Bob Ward. That's a great way to get a great headache. Just go to Bob Ward stuff and your head's going to split open, but it's worth it.
And like you said before, good advice there, just jump into things. And I'm guessing for Summit as well, I've heard other people give this advice. I do it myself is, go to a couple of sessions about things that you know nothing about. And I really like the way you said this, that it's all about data. And that's, Pass Summit is all about data for data professionals. So some good advice there to everyone who's watching this.
That was a good point. I mean, the reason we met is that I decided on a whim, what's this BIML stuff? I'll go see what this is about. And that's an interesting story too. I mean, I have zero interest in BI stuff. But as it happens, I was just working with a colleague trying to create a fairly simple SSIS package. And everybody who's worked with SSIS knows that it's click, 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 click all day long. You learn to hate it very quickly. And along comes this Norwegian girl that says, hey, I can do this with a script. And of course, many of my best friends are scripts, so I decided to listen, and boy, did I learn something new. That's one thing. Super. And the other thing, when it comes to learn or dare to do new stuff, I've never found a more inclusive crew than Pass or the SQL family. I think that I can just go up on stage, try something completely new, and nobody would laugh at me. They'd go, that was interesting. Not necessarily good, but interesting. Here's how you can change it. So it's a great way to go.
Absolutely. So I see that we're getting close to our end time here. So I wanted to thank you so much for participating in the SQL Hangout. Got some great advice there, sharing your experiences. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of other people just hearing that, hey, you're not alone in transitioning your career. And I'm guessing most of us working with SQL Server at some point have to make that transition and learn more about the cloud. So again, thank you so much. People can find you at Tech Days Sweden in Stockholm on November 16th and 17th.
Yep.
Or if you're over in the US for Pass Summit, make sure you go and find Alex. He's easy to find with the beard. And, you know, say hi. Like you said, the community is a great community. Any last words you want to say before we wrap up?
Thank you for having me. And let me reiterate, don't be afraid to jump. It can only get better.
Great advice there. So make sure you follow Alex on at Arctic DBA on Twitter and his blog, Arctic DBA as well. If you can't remember that, you know, cold Swedish weather, it's a good hint there. So thank you so much. And I hope to see you soon at another event, and keep blogging and keep speaking, because you have a lot of stuff to share with everyone.
Thank you. See you.
Right. Bye.
Bye.